At this point, the poor technical state of MindsEye, the debut game from developer Build a Rocket Boy, is well established. The bottom line is that as a $60 purchase, there is only morbid curiosity in checking it out at present, with glaring bugs, low frame rates, and even crashes blighting the experience on console. In fact, having tested all PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series machines on its latest update, 1.07 or 1.04.4 on Xbox, as released on the 18th of June, it appears little has improved post-release. For all its potential as a futuristic open-world action shooter, there's no question that MindsEye remains in an undercooked state. An apology has already been issued by the developer, while the problems run deep enough in its launch week that Sony is allowing refunds via the PlayStation Store. A rare maneuver for Sony that calls to mind Cyberpunk's own troubled launch back in 2020. We've already briefly touched on the game in DF Direct episode 218, where we found PS5 Pro and PC struggling with hitches, and where stutters on PC are well in excess of 200 milliseconds at points. As an Unreal Engine 5 title, the game's focus on Lumen and nanite technologies, plus vehicle simulation and physics, has echoes of the Matrix Awakens demo released back in 2021. MindsEye's feature set is uncannily similar: nanite, lumen, car simulation, and sadly this also extends to the state of its performance on console. All machines appear heavily CPU bound in a similar manner, with traffic buildups and destruction queuing up sizable sub 30 FPS drops. Even in the best case, every console, including PS5 Pro, runs with an unevenly frame-paced 30 FPS cap, meaning judder is a problem. Meanwhile, there's visible screen tearing right at the top of the display, which is exacerbated by drops into the 20s. The basics first. There are no graphics modes to consider in MindsEye, and every console runs with a 30 FPS target. In terms of native resolutions, there is dynamic scaling in play, with both PS5 and Xbox Series X typically running at between 972p and 1008p. As for the PS5 Pro enhancements, meanwhile, we have official support based on the PlayStation Store page, with Pro boosting its resolution to a higher 1296p average value. This jump in image clarity is really the full extent of the PS5 Pro upgrades though, as most other settings, shadows, textures, and world draw appear similar to base PS5. Sony's PSSR upscaler is also not in sight either, and rather, PS5 Pro uses the same upscaling solution as the other consoles. Finally, we have Series S, the weakest machine of the quartet on paper, which typically runs at 720p with spikes to 756p. Xbox Series S is an outlier given its 4 teraflop power profile, and it resorts to the greatest settings cutbacks as a result. In short, next to Series X, texture quality is dropped and shadows default to a lower preset with more obvious dithering to their edges. Transparency effects also run at a much lower setting, with visible pixelation on fire effects for example, while reflections take a hit in coverage across the metal sheen of interior walls. In matching the cutscenes between Series S and X 1-to-1, there's a higher frequency of pop-in too, for texture assets and shadow maps. As a result, in character close-ups or broad views of the world, there's often a longer delay as these elements draw in on Series S. Image quality is also remarkably blurry on every console, even PS5 Pro, but Series S takes it to a further extreme owing to its native 720p pixel count. The upscale so often struggles to resolve the game's distant detail, with chase missions on long highways or drone missions across the sky suffering the most for it. Speaking on performance, there's no escaping the fact that this is a 30 FPS only experience on console. A large chunk of the game, combat missions and interior areas technically run at the 30 FPS line, but the overwhelming problem is that frame pacing is much too inconsistent all round. Taking PS5 Pro in example, the frame time graph trills between 16, 33 and 50 milliseconds constantly in the big city, meaning it rarely feels smooth in practice. Driving at any pace through congested streets feels choppy, while hitches above that, spiking to 80 milliseconds and beyond, only adds to that choppy, erratic sensation. It genuinely makes it tough to thread the needle, so to speak, between two packed lanes of traffic, or line up a headshot during combat. Towering above these issues though is PS5 Pro's potential to go under 30 FPS. This is retested on the latest patch 1.07 where an on-rail shootout through the city still has Pro dropping into the 20s. We're pushing close to that 20 FPS line at points, and the fact is that PS5 Pro's GPU boost over base PS5 doesn't alleviate the issue, suggesting a CPU bottleneck. The situation on base PS5 is remarkably similar, with a choppy 30 FPS line due to uneven frame pacing plus screen tearing. Again, this is technically a 30 FPS experience in the main, but that uneven cadence plus hitches truly affects the flow of any action. MindsEye also hits lower lows in frame rate on base PS5. Again, the on-rail shootout mission puts PS5 at the lower end of the 20 to 30 FPS range, but it even finds itself at numbers like 18 FPS. In other words, there's a small pro advantage in this stress point. If there is a plus side here, it's that MindsEye's vehicle physics, the car handling and suspension are at least somewhat satisfying. But goodness, does the frame rate make it unpleasant to control at times. Both Xbox Series X and S versions suffer from the very same problems. The uneven frame pacing, hitching, tearing, and the sub 30 FPS drops are all present. Xbox Series X does perhaps hold up better overall during the on-rail shootout, with drops to the mid-20s rarely descending much further down the graph. It's hard to recommend Series X on those grounds alone, but the outlook so far is that it's potentially better than base PS5. On the other hand, Series S gives us the most damning result of the four machines, with that same on-rail sequence taking us to an 18 FPS low and then crashing. The software simply froze up on my first playthrough of this mission, forcing me to close the game manually and restart the app all over again. Other players have reported crashes in a similar vein, and it's the most crucial issue that needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, MindsEye is a release that looks and plays like it's months away from being ready for release. It's not a complete write-off. The framework of an entertaining enough game lurks beneath its myriad issues, but it clearly needs more time. The few positives to mention include aspects of its car physics, the suspension, which offer a decent sense of weight as you drift around a bend. Also, there's undeniably some superb character rendering put in close-up shots for its many, often quite lengthy cutscenes. Character models are crisply detailed, with every blink and smile brought to life by accurate motion capture performances. Credit where it's due, the direction for these scenes is a highlight. Overshadowing all of that is the frame rate, of course, and the game's bugs. Based on my time with it so far, a bulk of the bugs relate to enemy logic. Some enemies simply do not move, others have buggy collision making them impossible to shoot, or awkward cover animations. In other instances, amusingly, they disappear on the spot after dying. Likewise, the car physics at times produce laughably wild outcomes, where even a small piece of debris might send you spinning to the sky. This is all scratching the surface, especially with so much of the story left to see, but it does point to the range of gameplay issues that need fixing. All that's left to be said is that I do hope it's eventually fixed, because MindsEye has a hint of potential beneath these issues. Let's be clear, this is never destined for Cyberpunk or GTA levels of grandeur, but as a simpler action game using an open world format to stitch together its missions, it might have some merit. Sadly, developer Builder Rocket Boy is in a position now of needing to make up ground on quality control, and quickly too, now that it's actually been sold to paying customers. Whether that can be done in reasonable time, or if a recall and later re-release is a better route, remains to be seen. Either way, it's difficult to recommend MindsEye in its current state on any console, even PS5 Pro, which is a shame. But that's all from me today. If you did find this video useful or insightful in any way, feel free to like or subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell for instant notifications as any new video lands. To get a high quality version of this video and many more, check out our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, and to get in touch directly, you know where to find me. But from me for now, thanks for watching.